All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another monthly video with Coach Busy. This month, our theme is being a good teammate to yourself. Let's do a quick little recap about what we've learned so far in our monthly videos. In January, I talked about instructional communication. So our big theme was how communication is a vital volleyball skill, just as any other volleyball skill is. Communication is so important. We want our communication to be instructional and we want it to be positive. And I reframed it as putting our thoughts on the table. So anything you're thinking during a match that is instructional and positive, saying those things out loud. Our February theme was letting go of mistakes. So using positive self-feedback to move on from mistakes. March, being a good teammate, being a good teammate to yourself. I'm going to talk a little bit more about what that means. But I believe that this theme can help us eliminate some pressure coming up in March and give us a little bit more confidence and lower some of that performance anxiety that we might be feeling. Let's talk about March volleyball, baby. The month of March is always associated with basketball, March Madness. I love March Madness. I think it's one of the best times of the year for sports in general, but I do believe March is kind of an underrated month in the volleyball world. What do I mean by that? Well, first, let's just look at my nice little graphic design skills there. I added a volleyball there. Just looks good as new. I do think that volleyball is a huge, I think March is a really great time for volleyball. Let me explain more about what I mean by that. Let's think about where we are in the season right now. So we just finished the month of February, and I think February is a great competition month for us as a club because that is when President's Day happens. So we sent a ton of teams to St. Louis, a ton of teams to Kansas City. And those tournaments always come with playing some of the best teams in the country. Whether you're in Kansas City or St. Louis, you're always going to be playing that weekend teams that you'll see at nationals in June and July. So I think February was a great sort of test to see where we line up as teams right now, what we did well, what we can improve on. March, however, is qualifier season. I love qualifier season. It's so competitive. We're playing for the end of the season. We're playing for June and July for a spot to compete at nationals. We just finished the Badger Region qualifier, which technically was in February, I believe. Yes, it was. Now that I'm thinking about my calendar. But I thought that went really well for us as a club. Tons of teams got bids. Congrats to all the teams that got bids for nationals this past weekend. And in this upcoming couple weeks, we'll send a ton of teams to the MEQ and Indy and in St. Louis. Great competition again. We're playing for nationals. I think March is a really, really great month for the club volleyball world. On the other side, it kind of comes with some added pressure to perform well as a team and individually. We show up to qualifiers and you got to finish in the top 2 or the top 3. And that's not always easy to do. It's doable, but it kind of comes with some of this added pressure. So let's talk about how to eliminate some of that pressure. Teammates. That's my big theme. That's what we're going to be talking about today. I think this is going to help us a ton as we go through the month of March. Quick little slide here. Qualities of being a good teammate. These are some that I believe are the qualities of being a good teammate. When you work hard in practice, because you're working hard for your team. Communicating well, good communication. Picking up other teammates when they make a mistake. Really great way to be a good teammate. Holding yourself accountable for your own mistakes and continuing to have a growth mindset and improve. Having a positive attitude at practice and in games. And I think this one's really important, being focused and concentrated, especially at practices. Kind of just general, what I believe to be qualities of being a good teammate for your team, for others. Now I want to kind of see on the flip side, how can we change our perspective on teammates? Before I get into that, we're going to do an activity. This is our activity for the month. So I want you guys to grab a piece of paper and something to write with. Go ahead and do that now. Pause the video if you need to go grab it. I want you to imagine that you're playing in a match and one of your teammates seems to be struggling. We've all been there personally, where it's a match where you can't find the court on the other side, or you're shaking a lot of passes, your sets are a little bit off, whatever it is, you probably know what that is. Imagine you're in a match and one of your teammates is going through that. Think about what you would say to this teammate if you had the chance to talk to her after the match. What would that sound like? After you thought about that, I want you to take your piece of paper and write these thoughts down in a letter. It's important to not address the letter to your teammate, just leave it blank at the top, but write down the things that you would want to say to your teammate. So this could be, hey, I know like you must be feeling really frustrated right now, or you seem really upset, and I wanted to reach out, share some words of encouragement. What would that sound like? So go ahead, pause the video and resume when you are done with that. All right, if you are done with your letter, I want you to fold up the paper and address the letter actually to yourself and not your teammate. So if it was me, I would write Dear Busy on the outside of it. And then I want you to open the letter back up and reread your words actually to yourself. Pause the video, go ahead and do that. All right, I'm hoping that felt pretty good to do. Getting some really good encouragement for yourself, sharing some self-compassion. Well, let's discuss why I had you guys do this. Couple questions. Do we think that it's easier to give support to others or to ourselves? Do we often find ourselves reaching out a hand to a teammate, especially when they're struggling, and that feels a lot easier, a little bit more natural to do, or to do that to ourselves? Also, do we think that we are better teammates to our team or to ourselves? Do we feel like we are, the things I listed in the beginning, are we working hard for others, or do we have a positive attitude towards our teammates? Are we picking our teammates up, or do we do that to ourselves more? Essentially, I believe it is vital. It's very important to be a good teammate to others and to ourselves. All the things you do, if you think about the qualities that you possess as a good teammate, as someone who does a lot of really good things to your team, we need to also be doing that to ourselves. We are just as much a part of the team as everyone else is. And when we are not a good teammate to ourselves, we actually take away from the team and from our success. So if we think about everything on the flip side, if we're having a negative attitude towards ourselves, if we're not picking ourselves up after mistakes, if we're staying down and we're not working hard because we're frustrated, we're not only digging ourselves in a hole, but we're digging our team in a hole. And especially I think for volleyball, it's such a team sport. We need all 6 girls on the court and maybe all 10 or 11 that are there as a team to be doing these things for ourselves and for our team. So how do we improve on this? I think everyone probably has struggled with this at some point. Let's talk about how we improve on this. I want you to reread your letter and take away 2 to 3 statements that you feel were the most impactful to you. So for example, if one of them says, you are going to do better next time, take 2 or 3 or even more if you want to take away more, and rewrite these statements as I statements. So if you wrote you are going to do better next time, that would sound like I can do better next time. So rewrite these as I statements. Pause the video, go ahead and do this. Once you have rewritten your I statements, again 2 or 3 or more if you want, read through them before practices and before games, and make sure that they are positive, realistic, and simple. Things that will be really impactful to you. If you are someone like me that has like 5 different notebooks that I use for different things, take a picture of it and save it in your phone. I think we spend so much time in the gym on physical training, which is obviously so important to our game. And that's the only way we improve physically with our skills. The only way you guys will improve on these mental skills that I'm helping you instill is if you are really mindful about practicing them each week before practices and games. So take a picture, save it in your phone, and add to it as the season goes on. You can even write it as in your notes app on your phone, if you're someone that uses a notes app a lot, or set it as a reminder that goes off before practices and that pops up on your phone, and you can see all these good things you want to say to yourself. Give yourself self-compassion and remind yourself that you are trying to be a good teammate to yourself, just as you do for your team. How do we do this as a team? My last slide. How do we do this as a team? Make sure that we're picking up our teammates and ourselves after matches. So some of the things you wrote in the letter, you could pull a teammate aside and say it to them after a match if they struggle. Make sure you're doing that to yourself too on the ride home from a tournament or practice. don't just, go over the things you did wrong. Give yourself some good self-compassion. You could also send a text message to your teammates when you get home. Super simple, but I don't think it's something we do enough. I think we love to talk to our teammates when we do really well. And I think when things are hard, it's harder to reach out to people. Send someone a text message that would help their confidence completely. I think coaches can make sure that they give good feedback to players that made mistakes or players that are kind of being hard on themselves, and make sure we give opportunities for success next practice. So big takeaways from this video. Think about how you are as a teammate to the other people on your team. How can you replicate that to yourself, especially in the things that you say to yourself? And how can you give yourself good self-compassion to eliminate some pressure you might be feeling in March and to continue to improve and eliminate anxiety while you're playing. Thank you guys for tuning in and listening today. Hope this was helpful. Good luck to everyone as we go through the month of March. Again, one of my favorite months, not just for March Madness, but for volleyball qualifier season. I love March. So make sure that we go out, perform well. We want to perform really confidently as well. So take away some things that we talked about in this video. And as always, go Sting.